And that was the Bugkalot tribe that is out in Nueva Vizcaya. They were known for being primitive, in an isolated and a very remote area. They've been thriving for centuries out in the jungles of the Philippines. This tribe is famous for being former headhunters. It is June in Savannah, and the bugs are out, people, so something to be aware of. But anyway, how nice to come out to this hiking trail today, get out into nature. And there's actually a reason that I came out here too, and that was I wanted to talk about hiking out to a remote place in the Philippines that was out into the jungle, and we had to endure things like hiking a long trail and having bugs on us and stuff like that. So today's story takes place around 1996, and it was the summer of 1996, and a friend of mine and her family invited me to go visit the tribe that they had worked with as missionaries when she was growing up and her family was growing up, and that was the Bugkalot tribe that is out in Nueva Vizcaya. Actually up north, way up north, up in the mountains. And so it was kind of an honor because this tribe is famous for being former headhunters. So yeah, it's not every day you get to go visit a former headhunting tribe, and I just thought it would be a really, really amazing experience. And so I said, yeah, let's go. And of course I didn't realize it would be a lot of brutal hiking ahead of me on that trip, but hey, I was 18 years old, so how bad could it be, right? Couple things about the Bugkalot tribe. I was doing some research on this for this story because I wanted to get things right, and the word or the name Bugkalot actually comes from a root word of kalot, which means interwoven or weaving. And just like their culture, the way they build their houses out of rattan. Here, Americans call it rattan, rattan furniture. They build things out of rattan that was woven together, fibers, and also in their colorful clothing, they would have amazing designs and patterns that were woven into their clothes. So, appropriate name for the tribe, right? And excuse me while I bat away all the bugs and mosquitoes that are chasing me. I'm the only guy out here, so I'm the only food available. They were known for being primitive, in an isolated and a very remote area, but they were culturally rich, and they've been thriving for centuries out in the jungles of the Philippines, and they're infamous for being headhunter natured. In case you're not exactly sure what that means, it just means that if you happen to be an unsuspecting lowlander, Filipino lowlander down from the mountains, you could just be minding your own business, hanging out in a rice field, and suddenly someone would come attack you and kill you and take your head. So pretty wild stuff, but it actually really happened, and it's part of Filipino history, and it's really quite fascinating. So yeah, they were infamous for being headhunters, being fierce and warlike, and really they were known for this until as recently as the 1950s. So they were headhunting up until, what is that, 70 years ago, which is amazing to think about. Little bit about headhunting. It's not quite as straightforward and cut and as dry as you might think. You know, when I initially just think of the concept of a headhunting tribe, I just imagine them almost doing it as like just to be warlike and to do it for sport or something, but it's way more complicated than that, guys. And there was a lot more ingrained cultural traditions in the practice, and it was just part of their culture, part of their meaning as a tribe to get power and wealth and status within the community. And to give you another example, show you how ingrained it was in the tribe's culture, a man couldn't get married until he had taken his first head. So imagine dating your Bugkalot sweetheart, and you're hanging out and things are going well, and you say, honey, I'm thinking that we should take that next big step. I think it's time for us to get married. And she turns to her her man and says, but honey, you haven't even taken your first head yet. I mean, I can't even seriously consider you until you've done that. So that's the kind of social setup that there was in the tribe at that time. So this was going on for hundreds of years, and it absolutely terrified the lowlanders of the Philippines, because like I said, when these attacks would happen, you know, these guys were very skilled and used to doing this, and almost like trained, you could say, and they would just happen randomly, and people would be terrified because they would, you know, run and scream to their village that, oh no, another person was attacked and we found their body and there's no head. It's absolutely terrifying. So we have a lot of respect for this tribe, even though they no longer practice the headhunting. Getting back to the story about how we reached them and how we hiked to them, I just remember that we started in Manila, and we all piled into a vehicle, a truck or something, and it was my friend, her family, me, there was a whole bunch of us, and we drove up north, because Nueva Vizcaya is really far from the city of Manila and the capital region. So we drove and drove and drove, and we drove as far as we could till we got to the point where essentially we were at a trailhead, and that began our 7-hour hike through the mountains. And what I remember about this hike, and I'm looking down as I'm talking because I want to check for things like snakes and turtles and stuff on this path that just got a little bit more narrow. But anyway, what I remember about this hike was that it was through beautiful, beautiful mountains, and we crossed streams and valleys, and I mean, I've got a few pictures that I can sprinkle into this video to show you what some of the scenic views were like. But it was just gorgeous, and it showed how remote this tribe was and how inaccessible they were. In fact, the missionaries that initially came there, they when they hiked in and established a presence there, they built a small runway, and they were able to bring airplanes in, small light aircraft, and bring in supplies and things that they needed to do their work. So that was really the only way in and out other than hiking. Another thing I remember learning when I was on the hike was how they would communicate with each other, and they would get up on the tops of ridges and peaks, and they would yell really far, really loud. And we got to figure out how to get over this pile of trees here. Let me do this carefully. But anyway, they would use that to communicate with each other, and they could go for really long distance, kilometers and kilometers, just by yelling, ah! And I can't duplicate the sound that they would make, but it was a really effective way of maybe relaying some information before, you know, telephones and certainly cell phones. And I wonder if they still do that today. That'd be really cool because it worked. And where was I? So yeah, hiking there, we got there, and it was beautiful. And you know, I learned as much as I could about the tribe from my friends, and of course I didn't speak their language. They don't speak Tagalog, they speak their own tribal language. But you know, through the translations and through the my friends telling me what they were saying, is some of the stories were amazing. For example, if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you know how much I love World War II. And I found out that during the Second World War, the Bugkalot tribe came across Japanese soldiers. And in at least one instance that was relayed to me, they attacked and killed these Japanese soldiers. And they had their rifles. They still had their rifles because they said, yeah, we used the rifles for hunting. And can you imagine that? So imagine being a small patrol of Japanese soldiers and you're out in the jungle, out in the wild places, and suddenly you're met with like a bunch of arrows and people attacking you with bolos and stuff. Actually, I don't even know what they used back in the day because I don't know how much access to steel they had. But anyway, it must have been terrifying. And the Japanese didn't survive, and the Bugkalot tribe got to use their rifles for hunting. So pretty cool story. Well, I can't finish this story without mentioning the missionaries and all the work that they did in helping to, I mean, I don't know what other word to use other than just pacify, but helping to pacify this tribe of former headhunters. And if it wasn't for them and their efforts, I think the headhunting tribe may still have been just as primitive as they were 100 years ago, and they may never have changed. So it's pretty amazing to think that people came in, made contact, and brought their faith, and were able to invite these tribal peoples to come to a faith and change their ways. And to get someone to change something that big and ingrained in the culture of the tribe is pretty amazing. So anyway, if it wasn't for those missionaries, guys, I think a lot of more people would have lost their lives. And so I'm grateful that they came, and I'm grateful that they brought the change with them. And that's powerful, right? Because, you know, I think the idea of being a headhunter is really, it's pretty evil, right? It's not based in anything good. And when the missionaries came in and brought faith in God and shared with them a new way of life, and shared how they can change, the fact that they changed is immensely powerful. And it shows you that, you know, there's power in that as well. So I think evil was defeated, and you know, people stopped losing their heads, literally. So now you might be wondering, are there any cases in today's time, modern time, of someone being, you know, kind of like attacked by a primitive tribe, you know, and because you think, it's 2025, like this kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. Well, I was doing some research, and I was reminded that back in 2018, there was a Christian missionary named John Chow, and he attempted to contact a tribe of primitive hunter-gatherers called the Sentinelese. And this was on an obscure island in the Indian Ocean. And sadly, soon after he set foot on this island, he was killed. I think it was only a matter of days before they were able to see that he had been killed. And so, guys, that wasn't that long ago, right? 2018. So there are still tribes of people out there in the world. Now, that wasn't in the Philippines, that was in the Indian Ocean, but you see my point. There are still tribes out there to this day that are somewhere out in the jungles of the world, and they may still be taking heads. I don't know if that tribe of Sentinelese are headhunters per se, but they definitely do not like outsiders visiting them, and ended the life of someone who tried to reach out to them. So anyway, I also learned one other thing, and I'll wrap this up, and that is that the pacification of this Bugkalot tribe had its pros, but it also had its cons. And I remember I was talking to the missionary about this, and I was like, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, you know, when they started being able to have access to the outside world, unfortunately it brought some negative aspects as well, such as alcohol, you know. So it's like, oh great, now they can suddenly have access to alcohol, and maybe they're not ready for that. They're getting overwhelmed by things that they're not used to, and vices that they're not used to being exposed to. So, and then the other thing is just over time, the deforestation of the lands, the mountain areas, the places where they live, and the fact that slowly that is eroding, and they're not having as much land to work and to hunt and to live on as they did, you know, 50, 100 years ago. So that's a sad thing. We got deforestification and the modern world creeping into their world, and you know that can be a bad thing. But I don't want to leave on a bad note, so I'm gonna end on a positive note. I want to tell you about something positive that I stumbled on, and that was an organization called the Bugkalot Coffee Company. And what they do is they work with the tribe to, I guess, help grow coffee beans and make coffee. And according to their website, it's sustainable, it's responsible coffee growing, and it provides a livelihood for the tribe. So something, a way for them to earn money and a way for them to have a way of life apart from just existing off of the land. So that's a good thing, you know. It's nice to know that organizations like that exist and that it's not all bad news for the Bugkalot tribe. So anyway, if you thought this was an interesting story, do me a favor, give the video a like. Thank you for watching this one. I was really happy to visit this headhunting tribe. I thought it was the privilege of a lifetime, because not many people can say that they've done that. So just being able to visit them was amazing, and I'll be always be remembering that visit. All right, that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Thank you for checking this out, and I think I'll be making some more videos and just telling stories like this while I'm here in Savannah, patiently waiting to go back to the Philippines. I can't wait, but until then, this is what we're gonna be doing. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll leave it there, and I will say mabuhay. Bye.